Beep, wrong password, please re-enter. In the middle of the night, there was a sound of unlocking the password lock outside the door. I woke up instantly. Just when I thought it was just a nightmare, the door lock reminder sounded again. Beep, password input successful, welcome home. I woke up completely when I heard this sound. The electronic wall clock in front of me showed that it was 12:30 in the morning. Squeak. The sound of the door being pushed open came from behind me. Although it was very light, it was particularly clear at night. My scalp exploded immediately. The password prompt sound I just heard was not a dream. I have been living alone, and no one knows the door password except me. A stranger broke into my house in the middle of the night? Listening to the approaching footsteps, I closed my eyes tightly and tried to maintain normal breathing. The person who came in seemed to be groping on the wall. I prayed in my heart that the other party was just a thief who broke into the house and took the things and left quickly. It is the best result to be able to lose money and avoid disaster. Dong, dong, dong. At this time, there was a knock on the door outside. I closed my eyes tightly, and my heart was about to jump out of my throat. I couldn't open my eyes, but the person outside the door obviously didn't intend to leave. The knock on the door lasted for half a minute. It was difficult to pretend to sleep again. What to do? The person who entered my house seemed to start to doubt. I felt a breath stop in front of me. Although I closed my eyes, I could imagine that the other person was lying in front of me, carefully observing my expression. Anyone who dared to break into my house in the middle of the night would probably do anything. If I revealed a flaw, the consequences would be disastrous. Just when I was extremely nervous, the breath above my head disappeared. There were sounds of opening and closing doors from the toilet. Did the person who broke into my house hide in the toilet? This gave me a glimmer of hope, and I immediately squinted my eyes and looked around. There was no one in my room. Then I pretended to wake up and shouted impatiently outside the door. Who is it? Why are you knocking? I put on my slippers and walked outside, wishing I could open the door and rush out immediately. An old man's voice came from outside the door. Hello, neighbor, do you have alcohol? I just fell down at home. I looked out through the cat's eye and saw a hunchbacked old man standing in the corridor. This is the best time for me to leave home. Okay, I'll help you check. I was about to open the door when my phone sounded a notification. A message from the resident group of building number 1 was displayed on the desktop. Attention, neighbors, a murderer has sneaked into building number 1. Do not open the door tonight. Building number 1 is the building where I live. But soon, some residents who were not asleep came out to criticize him, saying that he was looking for trouble and that he always liked to play tricks on people. Those who believed him were fools. Resident groups do not need to note the house number, only the WeChat nickname. The person who sent the message was named Pippi, and he used to like to joke in the group. I didn't believe him either, and there was only an old man outside the door, who was not a physical threat to me. But as if he knew what I was thinking, Pippi sent me a private message. The murderer will ask you if you have alcohol, so don't open the door. I was shocked when I saw this message. The old man outside was still muttering, "Can you help me? My knee hurts." My brain was in a mess, but at this moment I had no time to hesitate or refuse. The person in the toilet is like a time bomb, and he may open the door at any time. I opened the dialog box of Yuan Yuan. Yuan Yuan is my only acquaintance here. She lives in 210, building 2. Are you asleep? There is someone knocking on the door outside now. The neighbor said that it is a murderer and the door cannot be opened. While waiting for her reply, I quickly sent a text message to the police. She was still awake. After seeing me quickly finish the current situation, she replied, "How could he know so clearly? And the time is so coincidental?" Yuan Yuan was reminding me that how could he send this message when I was about to open the door and know the content of our conversation. But I can't care about these now, because a certain message made me cold from head to toe. How did Yuan Yuan know that this neighbor was a man? I looked through the previous chat records. Yuan Yuan always used ta instead of he for people of uncertain gender, and never assumed it was him. Is this Yuan Yuan? I broke out in a cold sweat and decided to test her. I'm so scared. Wait until this old man leaves, then come find me. She replied almost instantly, okay, where are you? I was so cold that I could barely hold my phone. Yuan Yuan knew my house number. She wasn't Yuan Yuan. I made up my mind. The person in the bathroom was more worrying than the old man outside. I was ready to leave home. No matter how this person got Yuan Yuan's phone, I had to know who it was. I'm in room 308, building 1. Come here soon. The old man outside may have left my door, because he didn't wait for my response. It was just what I wanted, so I didn't have to deal with him, but I was still worried that the person in the bathroom would suddenly come out when I opened the door. There was a clothesline next to it, and I quickly propped it up on the handle of the bathroom. The distance was short and the speed was fast, so the people inside couldn't react at all. The door opened inwards, and the clothesline became a door bolt. Bang! There was a sudden sound of the door being pulled from inside, and the force was so strong that I was startled. Sure enough, there was someone inside. This door bolt couldn't hold for long, so I quickly turned on the monitor, stuffed a pillow under the quilt, took the backup device, opened the door and ran out. In the face of a disaster, saving your life is the most important thing. This apartment is not safe now, so I'll leave first and make plans later. I got to the first floor, but found that the door of the apartment was locked. This door has been in disrepair for a long time and is not locked at all. I was extremely anxious. The hall on the first floor was too empty, so I had to run upstairs. Jumping down from the window of the corridor on the second floor was not feasible. This was an apartment in a remote mountain suburb. In order to ensure safety, there was another fence around the apartment. If the door on the first floor was locked, the door of the fence must have been locked as well. I couldn't get out. After realizing this, I felt cold all over. Now I could only find a place to hide. Fortunately, I had called the police, and I just had to wait for them to come. The corridor was too empty, and it was not safe to stay here for a long time. It was locked. There was a small cleaning room at the staircase on the third floor, and the door could be locked. I pulled the key from the door, hid inside, and locked the door twice, before I felt a little safe. At this time, I received a message from Yuan Yuan. I'm at your door. I was originally here to invite him in, so I told him the password to open the door. I turned on the home surveillance on my phone, and the security door opened quickly, and a figure appeared outside the door. I immediately realized that this person was not Yuan Yuan, but the old man who asked me to borrow alcohol just now. I don't know how he got Yuan Yuan's phone, and he was holding the phone outside the door to communicate with me. No wonder he left immediately after I agreed to Yuan Yuan coming. He was called an old man, but in fact he was just a little thin and hunched, but he was very agile. The thing in his hand emitted a silver light, like a knife. He walked to my bed, raised his hand and stabbed the bulging quilt 5 or 6 times. Although I left, my hands and feet were still numb when I looked at the person in the surveillance. If it was me lying there, I would definitely be dead. What Pippi said was true, this old man was a murderer. When I was watching the surveillance in fear, I suddenly found something. The clothes-drying rod on the toilet was gone. The person in the toilet. At this moment, a figure suddenly jumped out of the blind spot of the surveillance camera and stabbed the old man with a knife at an almost inhuman speed. When I reacted, the old man had fallen to the ground, and dark liquid splashed everywhere. After killing the man, Chu Shou suddenly turned his head and stretched his face in front of the surveillance camera. A strange smile appeared on his ferocious face. Hide well, I'm here to catch you. Then the surveillance screen was pitch black. I was so scared that I tightly grasped my phone. This person was the one who just entered my house and hid in the toilet. He and the old man who knocked on the door were not in the same group. There were several waves of murderers in this building. Why did he target me? Or was it indiscriminate killing? Why didn't he do it when I was asleep? Countless questions filled my mind. At this time, the phone rang with a reminder sound again, which was sent by Pippi. now you believe it. I replied immediately. How did you know? He replied quickly, as if he knew I would ask this. How I know is not important, what is important is that only I can help you survive. What happened tonight is not that simple. This person is very strange, I don't trust him. I have called the police. If you are innocent, just wait for the police with me. He sent a smirking expression and didn't respond to my words. You live downstairs from me, right? It's not safe to stay at home, where are you now? I didn't note the house number in the residence group, how did he know which floor I live on? Either he had already investigated me, or he was deceiving me. It's obvious that I just need to wait for the police to come, and it doesn't matter where I am. At this time, anyone who asks for the location can be judged as the murderer. You are the murderer, right? I replied directly. He sent another smirking expression. You are very smart. My scalp numbs, he is the murderer, he really was trying to get my location just now. The other party continued to reply, compared to godlike opponents, what is more terrifying is teammates who are like pigs. I don't save fools. Come into the group. After that, I was pulled into a group chat with only 5 people. Looking at the nicknames, they are all people I have seen in the resident group before. Me, Brother Kuan, Haozi, Songju, and Pippi. I understood what Pippi meant. He was not the murderer. He was deliberately testing me just now. If I exposed my position, he would abandon me. After all, when it comes to life and death, his behavior is understandable. During their chat, I learned that they had just encountered the old man knocking on the door, and they all knew that there was a murderer in the building. Brother Kuan, it's just a thin man, why are you so nervous? Haozi, I can fight him alone. Songju, I've called the police, don't make trouble, just wait for the police to come. Haozi, why did you sleep so late today? At Songju. Songju, I woke up because of the water leak. Seeing that Brother Kuan and Haozi were still eager to try, I sent the pictures captured by the monitor to the group. A picture of an old man being stabbed to death, and a picture of the murderer facing the monitor. There is more than one murderer in our building, and the thin man is dead. Brother Kuan, oh my god? Haozi, we are just a suburban community, and there is no treasure. How can there be several murderers? Songju, since there are 2, it is hard to guarantee whether there are more. Don't go out and wait for the police. When I saw Songju's words, I thought of what happened just now. This murderer just entered my house by entering the password. I don't know if he has your password. All the entrance doors of building number 1 are password locks, and they can be opened with the password even if they are locked. This sentence caused a panic, and it was obvious that everyone was hiding in their homes. Pippi had not spoken a word, and the first sentence he replied was bad news. I just received a call, the mountain road ahead collapsed, and the police may take an hour or 2 to come. Everyone fell into silence. Now the downstairs is locked, and there is a murderer who knows the password in the building. There may be more than one murderer, and the police can't get here in a short time. I sat in the narrow cleaning room, trying to minimize my presence. This is a good location, and it is a key lock, so the internal locking is useful. There is one cleaning room on each floor, but I can't send this information to the group, which is almost equivalent to exposing my location in disguise. A link was sent to the group, from Brother Kuan. I was wondering why this murderer looks so familiar. I saw it on the wanted website before. This guy is actually a serial killer on the run. Pippi, really? Haozi, this guy has more than a dozen lives in his hands, and the reward amount is 50,000. I subconsciously wanted to click in and take a look. But a strange feeling stopped me. If I want to share a picture, most people will choose to take a screenshot, but sharing a link is more troublesome. Ah. At this time a scream broke the quiet night. Chusho moved again, and I pressed against the wall nervously. The scream was short, and the building returned to calm. The group chat exploded. Haozi, what's going on? Brother Kuan, fuck, who shouted just now? Pippi, are you all here? Those who are here, report the number. The 5 people reported the number separately, and no one was missing. But I received a private message from Songju, "There is a dead person in the group." I immediately understood what she meant. "You mean, someone died and the murderer took his phone?" She sent a nodding expression, which is why she didn't say it in the group. "Who do you suspect?" She didn't answer me immediately. "Did you click on the link sent in the group just now?" "I didn't click on it. Is there something wrong with that link?" She continued, "I just suspected that someone died after that link was sent." "Don't you think it's a coincidence? Now the murderer has sneaked into the group. As long as you reveal your location, the murderer will find you. The link sent by Brother Kuan may be a positioning method. Assuming that he has a problem, the sentence that Pippi said later is also to lure the next person to click in, which is also a big problem. Although the scream just now was very short, I also heard it. It was Housy's voice. I am very familiar with him. Housy's voice? At this time, Housy in the group was still talking. I thought of the hideous face behind me, and I felt a chill in my heart. Songju continued, "No one in the group can be trusted now. The two of us must unite as a team." Before I could answer, I received a message from Housy, group notification, "Songju is dead, don't believe anything she said." My hand shaking when holding the phone. How do you know Songju is dead? What he said made me completely confused. The scream just now was Songju's voice. I am very familiar with her. The scream just now was very short, and the sound was not clear on rainy days. For a while, I couldn't tell whether it was a man or a woman. Two people actually said the same thing. One of them must be lying. This person is likely to have been killed. In such a short time, another one is gone. The shadow of death loomed over my head, and I had courage in extreme fear. I can't trust anyone. I must live. Fortunately, it is safe to stay in the cleaning room at this time. I don't have to choose to trust one person. I chose to remain silent about the news of both people. The more I say, the more I will be exposed. I can't reveal any information to the murderer now. In the silent night, time seems to become particularly slow. The phone in my hand now has only 10% of the battery, but I took a spare phone before going out, and I can use another one when it is completely out of power. About 10 minutes later, Songju sent me another message. I don't know how many murderers there are in the apartment building now. According to our strength, we will definitely die if we meet the murderer. We must stay together immediately. Where are you now? Exposing your location is a taboo. Before I questioned it, I heard heavy footsteps in the corridor. This was the first sound I heard in more than half an hour since I left home. The footsteps were very slow, as if they were dragging something on the ground. Every few steps, I could hear the sound of the password being entered. It was the murderer. He was checking one room after another. I suddenly tensed up and my scalp was numb. This cleaning room is at the end of the corridor. If he checks one room after another, he will most likely find this place. Although the door has been locked by me, no one knows how long it can hold off. I really don't understand who these murderers are, why they came here tonight, and why they want to massacre the residents. And I vaguely feel that Pippi knows the truth, but I can't be sure which side he is on. A few minutes later, the murderer has checked 3 houses. The footsteps are getting closer and closer. I can't sit and wait for death anymore, so I can only take a risk. I lay on the wall, listening carefully to the movement outside, and when District opened the next door, I carefully opened the door of the cleaning room. Under the cover of his door opening and the sound of rain, I successfully opened the door. I ran from the corridor to the 2nd floor. In order to verify my guess, I called Housy's voice phone at the right time. The sound of the WeChat call came from the corridor on the 3rd floor immediately. Housy's phone is in the hands of the murderer. He was really killed. When Songju and Housy pointed at each other just now, I was inclined to believe Songju. Songju had said in the group that she was woken up by the water leak on a rainy day. The residents whose homes are leaking must live on the top floor, and although I couldn't tell whether the scream was male or female, I could clearly hear it. It was downstairs from me, that is, on the 2nd floor. If one of the two was lying, it was Housy, so I would take the risk to verify it. At the same time, my mobile phone in the cleaning room also rang. This was the alarm I had set in advance, which could delay the murderer for a while. Sure enough, the footsteps in the corridor were approaching the cleaning room. I quickly took this opportunity to find a hiding place on the second floor. The doors on both sides of the corridor were opened. Some of the bodies could be seen from outside the door. They were all frozen in the fear of the moment before death, which was particularly creepy in the night. I held my shoes in my hand and dared not make any sound. The place where the murderer would not find it, the place where the murderer would not look for it again. Just when I was about to despair, a light bulb suddenly flashed in my mind. People? The place where the murderer would not look for it again, isn't it dead? I immediately picked a house nearby. The owner was a girl who looked about my age. Her body was lying on the sofa in the living room. I bowed to her, then quickly took off her clothes, wrapped her in a quilt, and threw her out of the balcony. In the face of death, I was no longer afraid. I only had one belief in my mind: I must survive. This is the second floor. Downstairs is a muddy ground. With the cover of the heavy rain, there was no big noise. I put on her clothes, and lay on the ground in her position, disguising myself as a corpse. Before, whether I locked the murderer in the toilet or tricked him into the cleaning room, it was a provocation to him. He would definitely not let me go. I could be found wherever I hid. I could only take a gamble. I killed people indiscriminately. Maybe I couldn't remember the people I had killed. More than 10 minutes passed, and there was no movement outside. The door was wide open, the room was dark. I closed my eyes, and could only hear my strong heartbeat. Can I really escape? Buzz, buzz. The spare phone in my pocket suddenly vibrated. I quickly took it out and prepared to turn off the notification sound, but I saw a message on the desktop. Pippi, do you think you can get away with pretending to be a corpse? My scalp exploded immediately, and I immediately looked around. He knew what I did. There are surveillance cameras here. He helped the murderer to trick people into clicking on the link before, and I already suspected that he was the murderer. If the murderer can grasp my whereabouts, then it's useless for me to hide anywhere. He seemed to know what I was thinking, and sent a second message. Don't worry, I'm not on the player's side. Player? What does that mean? He seemed to have the ability to read minds, and he could give an answer immediately without me asking questions. You don't need to know what a player is, you just need to understand that only I can help you survive. I knew he could see it, and I sneered at the air. Don't pretend, you killed Halsey just now, will you help us? He just pulled everyone into the group. If it weren't for his words that made everyone relax their vigilance, Halsey might not have clicked on the link at all. He sent a smirking expression. Stupid people deserve to die. I like smart people. He directly admitted that he did it on purpose. I suddenly felt a kind of anger of being fooled, even more than fear. Who are you? After waiting for a while, when I thought there would be no more response, he replied to me. I am your helper. You should leave 210 quickly. He is coming down. If you turn on the light, you will know that the living room is full of your bloody footprints. Seeing this, I immediately turned over and sat up. With the light of the mobile phone, I saw that there were indeed several footprints next to the sofa. I didn't notice it just now. The blood of the owner of 210 was splattered all over the floor. As long as you step on it, it will leave traces. My heart was cold, and there were faint footsteps on the stairs. Time was running out, so I ran out of room 210. I went to room 212 to wipe the blood off my feet, and then went to room 225 at the end of the corridor. The whole process took less than a minute, and I heard footsteps coming from the corridor. District Hand was very arrogant and never concealed the noise he made. He is here. I don't have much time. I called the police again with my spare phone and asked how long it would take to get here. The police officer said that there was a landslide on the road and it would take more than an hour to take a detour. He asked me to close the door tightly and not to have a direct conflict with the murderer. I hung up the phone helplessly. This is a password lock and the reverse lock is invalid. It seems that everything was prepared for tonight. The police will not arrive for a while. There are only a few people left in the apartment. Through the contact just now, the only person who is trustworthy is Songju. I have no choice. I sent her a message, I am in 224, where are you? I reported my location directly, to gain her trust. She also answered me quickly, I am on the windowsill outside 402. You just said that the two of us should unite as a team. How to unite? After a while, she answered me, I have confirmed that there is only one district hand in the building now. Instead of waiting for death, we should take the initiative and kill him together, I replied. The other party is an adult male, and a serial killer. It would be difficult for only the two of us. She continued, there is one more thing. Pippi has a problem. He came to me and said that my curtains were open on a rainy day, exposing my position, and asked me to leave the windowsill immediately. I was shocked. This was the same thing I had just experienced. When he reminded me, I also wanted to leave immediately, but the murderer had already reached the 4th floor. I saw him push open all the windows on the 4th floor, and I was ready to jump down and go around the 1st floor. Listening to Zhu's description, my heart was in my throat. She continued, however, after the murderer came to my house, he did not push open the window. He searched around and left. I was shocked and suspicious. He pushed open the windowsills of every household, but avoided the windowsill where Zhu was hiding. If the murderer deliberately let her live, what was the purpose of the search? A bold idea suddenly appeared in my mind. You mean, Pippi is not helping us? Yes, if I left the windowsill as he said, I would have been found by the murderer long ago. I thought of what happened before and told Songju everything from beginning to end. If I continued to lie down and pretend to be a corpse, I might be able to escape. Songju analyzed what I said. Even if the curtains of my house were open and I was obviously hiding outside the windowsill, he couldn't kill me. Even if there were your bloody footprints on the ground and you were obviously on the sofa, he couldn't kill you. Do you feel that this is like a rule? Do you understand what I mean? It's like a game rule. I suddenly thought of what Pippi said to me just now. He called those murderers players. I understand. I understand too. We are all their prey tonight, but everyone has corresponding rules to save their lives. Find your own rules, and maybe you can survive. Understanding this, I can figure out what happened tonight. I don't know who started such a perverted game and turned this suburban community into a hunting ground. I was shocked and angry, but I also found a glimmer of hope in it. My rules are either to hide on the windowsill or leave the community building. Is your rule the sofa? Or lying down? I replied. Neither. I already know what it is. Come to 225, I am sure I can kill him. This is the end of the corridor, and there is also an escape route. In less than a minute, I heard someone enter 225, and the footsteps of this person were lighter. From Zhu? I asked in a breath. Soon I heard her response. I walked out of my hiding place and saw a girl in her 20s standing in front of me, slender and slim, and she didn't look very strong. She nodded at me. What's the plan? I pointed to the windowsill outside. You hide outside, I will lead the murderer to the window, and you come to kill him. She shook her head. It's safe for me to hide outside, but it's too dangerous for you to be inside. How can you lead him to the window alone? Why don't we just stay in the room? Two people working together may not fail. I immediately stopped her. No, the power difference is too big, and even if we strike first, we may fail. If we miss, we will both die. Have you forgotten the rules of the game? I have a way to save my life. Time is running out, go quickly. I was worried that there were cameras everywhere, so I didn't tell her the rules. Seeing that I was determined and time was running out, she finally picked up the weapon I prepared for her and climbed out of the window. The weapon was just a kitchen cleaver tied to a clothesline, but it was enough to kill a person. As soon as I climbed out of the window, I heard the sound of the corridor. The murderer entered the room next to me. If I guessed my rule correctly, there should be a chance of success. I practiced the 3 or 4 meters from the door to the window repeatedly in the dark, and I knew the location of all obstacles in my mind. Listening to the footsteps coming here, I took a deep breath and slowly closed my eyes. Yes, my rule is to close my eyes. Before in 308, the murderer entered my house through the password and did not kill me, precisely because I closed my eyes at the time, and just now I pretended to be a corpse and lay on the sofa with my eyes closed. The two behaviors overlapped, and I deduced my rule from this: as long as the murderer does not see me open my eyes, he cannot kill me. I hid by the door, and all the sounds around me became particularly clear in my ears. I heard someone come in, clenched the fruit knife in my hand, and stabbed it hard. Feeling the resistance of the sharp blade piercing the flesh and blood, and a roar, the strings in my brain were stretched to the limit, and my whole body trembled violently, almost fainting. A normal person cannot kill someone, which will break through a person's spiritual boundaries, which is why murderers are extremely harmful to society. I knew the murderer was right in front of me. After the roar, he actually laughed. Yes, you are very smart. He should have seen me close my eyes. Unfortunately, I was unlucky and did not kill him with one knife. I tried to calm my breathing and told myself that it was either him or me who would die. I stood at the door and began to wave the fruit knife in my hand by feeling, trying to force him closer to the windowsill and give Song-ju, who was hiding behind, a chance. He laughed even louder, completely ignoring the resistance of the ants. But you are wrong. I heard a click and felt the light coming in my eyelids. Chusho turned on the light. Why did he turn on the light? A detail suddenly occurred to me. After entering 308, Chusho began to grope on the wall of my house. I thought it was a burglar, but he was actually touching the light switch. Later, a hunter like him entered my house, disguised as Yuan Yuan, and stabbed the pillow I hid in the quilt without hesitation. If he thought the pillow was me at the time, then I might have closed my eyes while lying in the quilt, so why did he dare to do it? There is only one truth. My life-saving rule is not to close my eyes, but to close my eyes in a dark environment. The murderer just found the switch of 225, and my rule is invalid. After realizing this, I immediately took a wrong step to the side, and was still stabbed in the shoulder by the knife. Severe pain came from the shoulder blade. I opened my eyes, and the person standing in front of me was the one I saw in the surveillance. He was covered in blood, and because of excessive excitement, he became hideous and crazy, like a sure evil ghost. I am the first. I can survive. The next knife stabbed at me, and I ran away immediately. But his speed was too fast, and I was no match for him at all. In a flash, I gambled everything. Fortunately, the windowsill is only 3 or 4 meters away from here, and I accurately avoided all obstacles with my knowledge of the route and ran towards the windowsill. Now. I ran to the windowsill and fell to the left. Almost at the same time, a meat cleaver stabbed out from behind the curtain. The murderer who was chasing me was completely caught off guard and was stabbed through by the knife and stick. Hit the chest. Killed with one knife. I fell to the floor, my head was dizzy. Song-ju climbed in from outside the windowsill. Success. We succeeded. Her face was full of excitement and joy after surviving the disaster, and her face was full of tears. I also relaxed, it was finally over. At this time, the mobile phone in my pocket vibrated again. I opened it and saw that it was a message from Pippi. Not bad, very exciting. I replied to the message quickly. You are the pervert behind the scenes. You will not escape punishment for playing with other people's fate. He sent a smirking expression. Then there was no reply. The sirens came from downstairs, and the police we had been waiting for all night finally arrived. Song-ju and I leaned against each other until I saw the medical staff coming in, and I lost consciousness. On June 11th, 4 suspects entered Guangcheng community and killed more than 30 residents overnight. The 4 suspects had no criminal record and no social connection with the residents of Guangcheng community. It was a premeditated, unmotivated, and indiscriminate crime. 2 of the suspects died in Building 2 of the community, and 2 suspects died in Building 1 of the community. both were caused by residents' legitimate defense. Among the 37 residents of Guangshan community, only one survived. The social impact of this case was extremely bad and no report was made. One survivor? I woke up in the First People's Hospital in the city, and auxiliary police were watching over me. Seeing that I was emotional, several doctors rushed in, checked my physical signs, and said that I had stress trauma after a major stimulation and needed to rest well. No matter who I asked, everyone said that I was the only survivor. There has never been a person named Songju or Pippi in Guangshan community, including the messages on my phone. It seems that these two people have disappeared from the world, or according to the doctor, there have never been these two people. They are all my traumatic fantasies. I took several statements. Whenever I mentioned Songju and Pippi, they would show complicated looks, full of sympathy, as if I had gone crazy because of this. No one listened to me. After I recovered from the injury on my shoulder and confirmed the identity of the victim, I left the hospital. I investigated what happened that night for a long time, but I couldn't find out anything. The truth of the case was that 4 crazy social idlers suddenly had a whim to massacre a community one night. But I know that underneath this is a bottomless swamp. Behind the players and rules there must be a huge black field, so nothing can be found. This is a killing game. The tragedy in Guangshan community is just a hunting ground they randomly selected. After a year of fruitless investigation, I gradually gave up on this matter and devoted myself to the trivial days of making a living. Another 3 years, just when I was about to forget that night. I received a text message. There were several pictures in it. I recognized the woman in the picture at a glance. It was Songju, who had disappeared for 4 years. My heart was beating violently, and I immediately clicked on the picture. In the center of the picture is Songju's face. She is wearing a black vest and leaning on a sofa piled with US dollars. You can even say that the sofa is made of US dollars. She is holding a heavy-looking gold brick in her arms and is smiling happily. I think she looks a little different. It's still the same face, but I feel that her expression is a little hideous, as if I have seen it somewhere before. When I zoomed in on the picture again, I found that there were many dark red marks on her body. In the dark background, there seemed to be many people lying, and the building looked like it was somewhere in Southeast Asia. I immediately understood who she met and what temptation she received after I fainted that year, and she left with them. She changed from prey to hunter, and she participated in the killing game. I edited a text message to scold her and said that I had called the police. She sent a smirking expression. If you participate in this game, as long as you can survive to the end, you can get anything you want. I was furious. I don't want anything, I just want the truth to come out, and I want you to pay for your murder. She replied to me. Okay, as long as you survive the game to the end, we will surrender. I was stunned. For a moment, I thought she was just mocking me, but then I realized that this was actually true. As long as they participate in their game, they can win their lives as prizes. Crazy, you are completely crazy. She sent me a smirking expression. I felt like I couldn't breathe, and my ears were buzzing as I stood on the street. I don't know how long it took, but I heard the sirens. The police were very fast this time. I quickly showed them the text message. The police took it and flipped through it, then gave it back to me. What text message? Your phone is infected with a virus. After I took it, I found that all the previous text messages and pictures were gone. The screen was full of words, "See you tonight. See you tonight. See you tonight." The end.